away some kind of confidence. We're in the middle of a study on community. Community in the church. Have you learned anything in this study yet? Anything really strike you as important?
We probably need more community more than what we realize.
We need it more than what we realize. We need it desperately. It's huge. It's really important. Well, tonight you can see from the screen, community runs deep. We live in an age of consumerism. What is consumerism? Shopping, okay. Consumption. Even in the church, we have a consumerist mentality. What would that be in the church?
You get to pick and choose.
Get to pick and choose. What am I going to get out of it? If I go today, what am I going to get from it? What are they going to provide for me? If one thing unites church leaders everywhere, it is a frustration over a consumerist mentality, even in the church. A recent feature in Leadership Journal asked churches from all corners of evangelicalism, from progressive to traditional, from huge mega churches to small house churches, how do you combat consumerism at your church? And the answers varied drastically. Some said, we encourage small groups. Others said, you have great music. Others said, try hard to be unhip. I don't think preachers have to do that very much. I think we're just as, in general, unhip. Rely on the word to change people was another answer. Well, the answers are all hugely different, right? You would expect that from very, very different perspectives. But despite disagreement over the solution, not a single leader questioned the problem. Every single one of them said, yes, it's in our congregation. We have a consumerist mentality at our church. I think it's just part of our culture. I mean, we breed it. We consider church to be like a buffet. Just pick and choose what I like, and I'll leave the rest. I grew up down south where every little town's got 15 of the same flavor. You just pick and choose which one, and then sometimes that becomes a buffet, and you just go to this one till they do something you don't like, go to that one, till they do something you don't like, go to the next one. That's a consumerist mentality. And consumerism is dangerous. Why is it dangerous?
No stability.
There's no stability.
You're trying to be the rule maker rather than letting God.
You're trying to be the rule maker rather than let God make the rules and follow his.
Leadership will vacillate back and forth on what's important just to keep people in the building.
Yeah, leadership will vacillate on what's important just to keep members in the pews.
Not only no stability within the congregation, but it's not even stability within the parishioners.
That's right. A healthy church doesn't have consumers, it has providers. What can I give to the church? What can I do for the church? How can I keep this church up and running? How can I keep it involved and going? What can I do for the Lord, for his church? Not the other way around. If consumers fill the pews, who's going to turn on the lights?
Who's going to pay for the lights?
Who's going to pay for the lights? Who's going to staff the children's ministry? Advocating for commitment in the church would seem as controversial as advocating for Jesus, and yet here we are trying to get commitment. Commitment is at an all-time low, in my opinion. Commitment to the church is at an all-time low. If it's not all-time low, it's way down there. We're not committed. We like what we like what we want. And if it's not providing what I like and what I want, I'm not going. If they do one little thing to upset me, I'm not going. So let's talk about comfort. The very strategies that we use to battle consumerism often will feed it. The very things we do to try to defeat consumerism actually turn around and feed consumerism. Every church seeks commitment from its members, right? I mean, that's what we're after. We want commitment. The Lord needs commitment. The church needs commitment. Well, how do people commit to a church? What tells you a person is committed?
When they ask what they can do.
When they ask what they can do to help, to serve. When they stay, if it gets a little rough. Boy, can you imagine the church at Corinth? You talk about more than just a little rough. Or Jerusalem, when they're being persecuted. Generally, people commit to the church in the same way they decide to commit to anything else in this world. Let's take an example from consumerism. How would you commit to buying an Apple product? Well, at first, a Mac is just another computer. An iPad is just another screen. But maybe you end up borrowing your friend's Mac to check an email, and you realize the screen doesn't freeze quite as much as it does on your PC. You liked it. It was a little bit better. You'd hardly call yourself committed to Mac quite yet, but you're interested. So when your PC finally dies, you decide to give Apple a try. Even if their machines cost just a little bit more. And then your friends notice you're using a Mac, and it's your trendiest friends at that. They seem excited about it. That reinforces it. After a little while, you're committed. It happened to my wife. She's an Apple Mac user. I'm an Android.
Watch, phone,
PC, yeah.
PC.
She's got it all. She's connected. She's together. She's probably going to comment now. Yeah. Not me. I'm Android all the way. Pardon? Yeah. But how did it happen? How did that person become committed to Apple?
We're down to 2 viewers now.
What's that?
I said we're down to 2 viewers.
Oh, we lost one. I probably made her mad and she quit watching. It didn't happen all at once. You didn't intend on becoming an Apple fanatic, but you liked it. It met your needs. Over time, it was reinforced. Before long, you're a Mac user, an Apple user. That's similar to how commitment works in the church. You begin by emphasizing that, well, we don't have any expectations for newcomers. Just come give us a try. We don't have any expectations of you. Just come give us a try. Try it once. Just show up. We advertise. This church is a great place to learn about the Bible, to find community, to feel close to God. So people take a step closer. They come to church. They get here. They feel a little bit comfortable. It's a little scary at first, but man, they're friendly. And they just took us right in. And they're comfortable. And then we encourage them to make a slightly deeper commitment. Well, just come back again. Come back again. We don't have any expectations. Just come on. And think for a moment of all the different ways this plays out. What are we doing? From the very beginning, what are we doing? There's no expectations.
God doesn't have any expectations.
God doesn't have any expectation.
Our church doesn't have any.
And the church doesn't have any. Just come on. There's no expectations.
Come when you want, almost.
Come when you want. It's not almost, it is. It's totally voluntary. Just come on anytime. Commitment through ministry experience. You know, service in the local church is a tool to get people interested, and we hope they'll commit further. That's the plan. You hope that they'll get involved, and some do. Some jump right in because it's part of their background or who they are or whatever. It's just part of them, but they'll jump right in and they'll get committed. And others, they don't ever commit. We try small groups. Come to our small group. You don't even have to go to church. Just come to our small group. It's a gateway to church. It's a bridge. Maybe you'll be more comfortable in somebody's home. So go to a small group. Go to somebody's home first. And if you like it, consider moving on to making a deeper commitment elsewhere in the church. But you notice what we're doing. If you like it, if you're comfortable, it's all about you. It's all about you. It's not about us. It's about you. The model is a process. We want commitment by process. That's the current model, right? It's a process. You start with nothing, and over time, if you're comfortable, if you like it, you'll commit. It's called comfort-based commitment. And over time, as people see the church community meeting their needs, they become more comfortable. And I'll tell you, there's a lot that have come to us with a need, like a financial need or grocery need or whatever. And as long as you provide that, they're here. But when you stop, what happens? They stop. They disappear. It's comfort-based commitment. That's how we think about commitment in the church. As long as you're comfortable, as long as you like it, as long as it's your thing at the buffet, you commit. But there's trouble in paradise. As common as the comfort-based mentality is, it does not foster this supernatural community that we have been talking about. Supernatural meaning God brings us together. There's no logical explanation for all the various people that come together. They have nothing in common, but God has brought them together and they are committed to Him. And because they're committed to Him, they're committed to each other. That's supernatural community that I'm trying to support, I guess, or teach. There are two problems with the comfort-based commitment. Number one, it tells at best a half-truth about what it means to be a Christian. What's the half-truth?
You're not going to feel comfortable.
It's not about comfort, is it?
No.
There's nothing comfortable about a cross. And Jesus said, if you're going to follow after me, take up your cross. That's not comfortable. That's sacrificial.
And it ain't easy. It isn't a 1 hour thing once a week.
That's right. It's not easy. It involves time and talent. And quite honestly, many other things. So that's the first problem. It tells a half-truth about what it means to be a Christian. And secondly, comfort-based commitment doesn't necessarily demonstrate this supernatural power that we're looking for. Remember, biblical church community reveals something about God's power and what He's doing through us. If we're all comfortable, it's not Him. So then let me present to you, instead of comfort-based commitment, let's talk about calling-based commitment. Calling. Isn't Christianity about a calling? He has called us to something. A church built on the commitment of church membership is different. It requires commitment up front. You bind yourself to a group of Christians that, quite frankly, you don't even know them that well. You're not friends with them yet, but that's not the point. That will happen. You know that will happen. You're committed to God. You're committed to His people. You know that will happen, but it's not there yet. A person is baptized into Christ. He or she is making an upfront commitment to follow Christ. And much of that is a commitment to not just Jesus Christ, but His body, the believers, the members of that particular body. Church membership attaches a general commitment to a specific group of people. Your commitment to them doesn't stem from feelings of attachment or comfort. I think those feelings certainly follow, and I think relationships build, and I think that's the supernatural aspect. But right now, you don't even hardly know them. Instead, it's a commitment you make because you are following Jesus Christ. So instead of comfort-based commitment, I want us to aspire to something that is more calling-based. Commit to other believers in the church simply because that is who God called you to. Remember, we looked at a passage last week, 1 John. 1 John chapter 4, verse 19. It starts with salvation. We love because why?
First loved us.
Because we're saved. That's what that means. Because He first loved me. I'm saved. He loved me enough to save me. So we love each other. Why? Because we're comfortable? No. Because we're saved. Then it goes on. Verse 21, down to verse 21. The commandment we have from Him, make sure to read that right. It didn't say the suggestion, did it? Or the implication or example, or no, the commandment, right? The commandment we have from Him is this. Those who love God must love their brothers and sisters also. What is that? That's a calling. It's a commitment based on salvation, not comfort. There's a commitment there. Every person that God loves, and we're talking about a salvation sense, back up in verse 19, has to love other Christians. It's a command. You have to love other Christians. Don't you think there's a commitment involved in that love? There are no exceptions. You don't get this person did this to me, so I don't love them. You don't get that. There are no exceptions. It means we should stop viewing commitment to a local congregation as a process that you build over time if you're comfortable, and start viewing it as an event that started at one point in time and it grew from there. Or the commitment is very, very different then. The event is our salvation. The commitment is something that follows immediately, not something that just kind of happens as you mature. But isn't it good and right for us to increase in our love toward each other? Well, sure. That happens. But we have a commitment that should be at the very beginning. In our culture, it just doesn't happen much. There's nothing wrong necessarily with comfort-based commitment in and of itself. Comfort is not wrong. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't be comfortable. I'm trying to say we are committed even when it's not comfortable. The problem is comfort becomes the main tool for building in community in the church, and that's a shaky foundation. If we lower our expectations for newcomers, and we're talking about Christian newcomers, those that they're coming to Christ. If we lower our expectations to just about zero, what do we get in return? About zero. If you rely on comfort-based commitment to kick in over time, what's going to happen? It's a comfort habit. You don't grow. You become a consumerist congregation. How can we get people in the pews? The Bible assumes that commitment is important, I think. So what does commitment look like? What do we expect? When a sinner is saved by the grace of God, what should we expect?
Well, I'm reading John 4:24 says, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth.
Okay, so worship. Commitment. Participation. And growth. A lot of things. And if you look at Scripture, at least a part of the answer, commitment, it's a bit surprising. Let's walk through the ways the Bible calls all Christians to one another in a congregation, and these are just a sampling. But here's one. Down in the black box, to love one another deeply and sacrificially. The Bible calls Christians to that. Love each other deeply and sacrificially. Romans 12, beginning with verse 13. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. And by the way, who's he writing to? Christians, right? The church at Rome. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Don't claim to be wiser than you are. What's that telling me? Be humble. The characteristics of a Christian look like this. Help when help is needed. Extend hospitality, even to those you don't like or don't even know. Bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. It's important to remember times like these. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony. On and on it goes. It's not easy, but it is a deep love, a sacrificial love that it calls us. Isn't that commitment? Is he not talking about commitment to one another? I'm going to go here. I know people don't like it, but I'm going anyway. It calls us to assemble regularly with one another. Hebrews 10:25 tells us that ours is a life of not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. There's a commitment there. I know there are sometimes reasons we can't do it. I don't think it's asking for absolute perfection, but we very quickly and easily get into a habit of not doing it, don't we?
Purpose of it. If you study the whole text, the purpose and reason behind it, it has to do with the spiritual connotation, because the reason for the command is always for our benefit, for the church's benefit.
Absolutely. It's for our benefit, not our detriment. To be a Christian is to join with other Christians in worship. Sometimes we forget this passage. Matthew 18:20, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am with them. I'm in the midst of them. He's here. Not because it's a building, but because his people are here. Now, where would you rather be? Hebrews 3, beginning with verse 12. Take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God, but exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. What's that called? Give it a name.
Warning.
Pardon?
I said it's a warning.
Okay, it's a warning, but what is, put it in verb form. What is that for as far as we are wanting one another, toward one another?
Shrewd.
Shrewd, okay, be shrewd. I would say it is protecting each other, guarding each other, exhort one another every day, as long as it's called a day, so that none of you will be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. It's being there for each other. Isn't that a commitment? I mean, is he just asking us to, well, if it's comfortable, if you have time, that becomes a suggestion, doesn't it? It's not a suggestion. Encouragement is an antidote to unbelief, is what that's saying. Encourage each other so that that unbelieving heart doesn't take over. Strengthen each other. Be merciful, Jude 22, to each other. Hebrews 3 is written for all of us, not just the preacher, not just the elders. It's for all of us. Similarly, in 1 Corinthians 5, again, back to the church at Corinth, Paul rebukes the entire congregation because one of their members is living in sin. He gets onto the whole congregation because one is living in sin. What does that mean? It means we're committed to each other. We're a part of each other. There's pretty strong words. Community isn't just about worship, and it isn't just about eating. It isn't just about Bible class. There is a commitment to the salvation of all of us. We care for each other. We're committed to each other. We look out for each other. We help each other. And we could go on and on. There are lots and lots of passages. Practically the entire New Testament is talking about this very concept. The Bible assumes that all Christians love one another deeply and sacrificially, and they assemble regularly with one another. It assumes that they help guard one another and help each other and provide mercy and love to each other, and on it goes. So tell me, how important is commitment?
The salvation of the church.
It's for the salvation of the church. So I'm going to go a step farther and say it isn't just commitment, it even goes to a formalized commitment. By that I simply mean membership, or putting yourself under the direction of an eldership or a church body. It's an essential part of Christian love. 1 Corinthians 5, beginning with verse 9. I wrote to you in my letter. I don't know if you've ever caught this. What book is this?
Corinthians.
So 1 Corinthians is not 1 Corinthians. It's actually 2 Corinthians. And 2 Corinthians is not second, it's actually third, at least. Right? I wrote to you in my letter. He's referencing a previous letter. But we don't have that. We just have this one. So this is 1 Corinthians for us. I wrote to you in my... That's those details we were talking about. I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with immoral men, not at all meaning the immoral of this world, or the greedy and robbers or idolaters, since then you would need to go out of the world. But rather I wrote to you not to associate with anyone who bears the name of brother, if he's guilty of immorality or greed or an idolater, reviler, drunkard, or robber, not even to eat with such a one. For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside. Drive out the wicked person from among you. Now, you may not read the word membership in there, but it is certainly implied, is it not? You've got people that you are a part of, a group that you are a part of. There is, well, let's put it this way.
I mean, it says brother.
It says brother, but look at these words that I highlighted. Outside and inside. You have outsiders and you have insiders. What does that imply? Church body. Is that just those who physically assemble versus those who don't? No, because we invite people to come in all the time. You have a friend that comes in and assembles. Are they inside or outside? Pardon?
Inside.
Well, if they're in a building with you, but they may not. Yes, they might be inside the building. They may not be inside Christ, or the formal body, if you will. Yet, Paul will assume a few chapters later that non-Christians actually gather together with Christians. 1 Corinthians 14, beginning with verse 23, he says, in an assembly, you've got those that are Christians and those that are not. So it isn't just based on those who assemble. The line of inside and outside defines the body of Christ. There's a formalized body, a formalized commitment. On one side are those that call themselves believers, but they don't just call themselves that, they live it. They have committed, they have submitted to Jesus. They have obeyed him. On the other side are those may or may not attend. They don't have that commitment. Matthew 18:17. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to whom? The church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. What's he implying?
Let him go.
Can't do nothing.
Let him go. But he's saying, tell it to the church. Tell it to the body, the formal body. Now, these two particular passages are about church discipline. That's really where the Bible is clearest in this formal aspect. You've got a formal group, a committed group. Formality is most needed when there is trouble. When things are going good, you don't necessarily need it. When things are going rough, that's when you need it. When an auto manufacturer and its supplier get along and sales are flowing, the contract gathers dust in a filing cabinet. But let things get a little rocky, and what happens? The contract comes out. You need some kind of formality. Hebrews 13:17. Obey your spiritual leaders. Do what they say. Their work is to watch over your souls, and they're accountable to God. Give them reason to do it with joy, not sorrow. Certainly not be for your benefit. Isn't that implying a formal group, a formality? What do you call this level of Christian commitment? Well, I'm going to use Paul's words. 1 Corinthians and Ephesians. He calls it a body. Right? He calls it a body. And it has members. And the members are arms, feet, fingers, so on and so on. And he says every body has members and they're all important and they all have a role. Isn't that an implied commitment? All of us are members, a membership, if you will. And we are meaningfully and self-consciously committed to a body of believers. And we are to be providers, not consumers. What can I do for the church, the kingdom, this group? What can I do to serve it? Not what can it do to serve me? Here are some actions that clarify the responsibility that new members take on when they become a member. These are some suggestions that I think maybe we should consider. How about some classes that explain membership, that explain what commitment is, what it involves? Instead of letting people, we kind of throw them in and say, sink or swim. Figure it out. We don't think that way. We don't say that, but that's what we do. What if we had classes that say, hey, here is kind of the expectation of the church. Here's what Christ expects of you. We used to have tracts, remember, that we gave to new Christians that wrote it out in no uncertain terms. Here's what is expected of you. That's exactly right. Kind of a truth in advertising campaign. So that they will understand. Here's a simple thing. Some congregations do it. Sit down with an elder or the eldership. Give them your testimony. Give them your story. Here's why I'm a Christian. Here's why I'm coming to the church. And they say, absolutely, we would love to have you, but here's what we expect of you. Isn't that better than, well, we sure hope you're comfortable here and we don't have any expectations? I think I ran out of time. I was also going to put actions that clarify the congregation's responsibility to new members. One of the things that we do pretty well is our membership directory. People work hard on that. Ed takes the pictures. Pat types it up, keeps it updated. That's an awesome thing. I look at mine all the time because I cannot remember your name. But here's an idea. What if we challenged everybody, every single member, to take that thing and pray over every member every month? Well, that'd be too much. I haven't counted how many are in there, but it's probably not too many more than one or two a day, one or two families a day. Just add that to your prayer list. Wouldn't that be something that we could assure new members, hey, this is what we're going to do for you? We share in the Lord's Supper. That might be a good time to say, hey, one of the things, this is looking introspective, but it's also looking at everybody else. Let's remember to pray for each other. Take that directory and pray. Every month, just go through it, flip a page and put the date. I prayed for these people on this date. Well, we could go on and on, but my time is up. I'm actually over time now. I'll leave final thoughts to you. Community runs deep. If you didn't get it, that's tonight's thought. It's deep. It should be deep. Any final thoughts? All right. We continue on next week. Now, this is not a long study. This is one of those bang you over the head and then I'll give you a break to get over the headache. We're about halfway done already with this study. But we're getting into some very practical things in the coming weeks. So thank you for being here. We are dismissed. How many did it say?
I think at one point I got up to 5.